What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh. What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me is Chris Fry. We are both with the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions about the film we're reviewing today. It's a big summer release and
Late summer, big release, part of a franchise that
yes.
There's some history there, especially a little bit more. I'm looking over on your side of the table because,
yeah.
I mean, we're talking about Alien. I know we kind of drew out the tease there, but talking about the new Alien movie, we're going to get into their review of that in just a minute.
I think since the start of the show in 2011, I think we have reviewed every Alien film that's been put out, so that it's kind of our duty at this point to review this film.
Well, it's expected of us.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so we
By
have an
our legions
obligation.
of fans, yes.
That's right. Our legions of fans have clamored for this. We have reviewed every Alien film in the franchise that has come out since we started the show, which has only been, all right, let's be honest, it's only been 3 of them?
Yeah, this would be the third.
Third one that's come out since we
Prometheus,
started.
We had Covenant, and then this one. Yeah.
Covenant, that's the one I keep forgetting the name of.
I mean, the names of these kind of do bounce around, so it's fair.
It's Alien : something in most cases.
In most cases, yes.
So we are going to talk about the latest Alien : Romulus. That is the newest one from director Fede Alvarez. We'll be discussing that in just a moment and giving our thoughts. I know Chris is a big fan of the original Ridley Scott Alien. I'm a fan of it as well, but Chris is a super fan. Chris is going out on Thursday night, the night technically before even opening night of the film, to go see this film.
This is true.
So I know you're going to introduce the film in a minute, Chris, but I just be warned, I'm going to immediately turn it back to you because I'm more curious about your take.
Okay.
And I think I know it.
Okay.
I think I know your take on this film. I'm going to see if I predict it right. After we do our review of Alien Romulus, I've got a news item and a trailer of a new film I just was made aware of that I wanted to share with Chris and with the audience, and we can talk about it. So we got a little bit of news to cover. And then Chris, I believe you have a recommendation of a film for us as well by the end of the episode. We'll cap off the episode with that patented special Chris Fry review or recommendation. Yes. So all that to say, Chris, are you ready to jump back into the world of Alien and talk about this latest film?
Let's do it.
All right.
Is this really where you want to spend the rest of your life?
You know I don't.
Then this is our only ticket out of here.
Alien Romulus makes for the 7th film in the Alien franchise, if you don't count the 2 Alien vs. Predator films.
And we shall not.
Which I may have just lost my official Weyland-Yutani stockholder status by mentioning those. So let's move on. As far as sequels, prequels, reheats, reboots, and expanded universes go, how was your experience with this entry, Alan? And did you find it was suited for a big screen release, or would you have sent it straight to online distribution like 2022's Prey?
Okay, I'll hit the second question first because honestly, I'm just going to kick this back over to you and get your opinion before I jump into mine. I want to hear your opinion.
Okay.
Your second question, though, whether this should have been in theaters or a release online. No, this is a theater release. I mean, I thought Prey should have been a theater release too. I mean, I would have gone to see Prey in the theater.
I agree.
As well.
When we reviewed it, we were both kind of like, missed opportunity.
Absolutely. So no, this deserved a place in the theater, and I'm gonna leave it at that before I turn it back over to you and say, Chris, I know how big a fan you are of the original, and you're a fan of the Cameron, the Aliens.
Yeah, the only one that I remember being negative, like right off the bat, was Alien Covenant, and I've since revisited it, and I'm I feel a little better about it. But
even Alien Resurrection,
when I saw, I've only seen it once when I saw it in the theater, and I think I was okay with it. I'd be interested. I haven't revisited it, so I would be interested to revisit that one.
Okay.
So,
well, given all that, there's a lot of history.
Yes,
there's a lot of history.
Oh yeah.
And Alien Romulus, we do have it's a similar setup. There's a derelict space station, group of young space colonists go to explore it. They're looking for a particular thing that they want to use to be able to try to. Yeah, what was that? Are they trying to make they're trying to get in the
They want to use
the
escape pods, the cryopods, to be able to go to a distant location where they're promised a better life.
Okay. Yeah, so they're trying to get away from their current setup because they were basically going to be forced labor in the mines,
right?
Back on their home planet. So they're like, all right, we're going to get out of here. They go and they find that there are these why can I not pronounce it?
Yeah.
Cryogenic. Why can I not say that? They find that there's these cryogenic pods that will allow them to space travel because it was going to take like 60 years to get to this other place. So they're going to find these. And then they happen to stumble into a ship that we may or may not have some familiarity with already. So, leaving it at that, Chris, tell me what you thought of Alien Romulus, because I really want to. I think I know, and I could play the game of go ahead and telling you what I think, but that's not. If I'm wrong, then that's not really fun, and that could set the wrong tone for the discussion. I know. Trust me, in the back of my mind, I know what your opinion of this film is. I'm just anxious to hear you say it, and I want to see if I'm right.
Well, I'll tell you, I knew, so you'd mentioned in the setup that, or, in the intro of the show, that I'd seen it Thursday night, and I had, and I felt one way walking out of the theater, and then I've had some time to sit with it, and I knew you were going to see it last night, right before we recorded this, and I was tempted, but life got in the way, work got in the way, to actually sneak in the theater and go see it again, just to kind of double check some of the things that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And to surprise me, be like, hey. But that didn't happen.
But if I saw Chris Fry walk into my theater last night, knowing you already seen it once, I'd be like, oh my gosh, Chris really likes this movie. Okay.
Which wouldn't have necessarily been true.
Right.
So let me start off. The big thing, the take home that I got from this film was David Johnson's performance. For me, made this film worth watching alone. He plays a character, Andy, and I'm not going to spoil anything because if you've watched the trailer, you kind of know that something's a little up with him, but it's revealed in the first couple of minutes of the film.
Yeah.
He's I think they don't call them androids, they call them synthetics or whatever.
Synthetics, although with the name Andy, I mean, it's kind
right,
of having
Andy
fun
Android,
with it,
right. So they play, that's his role in this film, and he is kind of a semi-brother to another main character, Rain, played by Kaylee Spaney, which we'll get to her in a second. But just his performance was, for me, so fascinating. And he was the most interesting character of the whole film for me. And just kind of his arc. And I don't want to get into too much about that because I feel like that's spoiling what was really enjoyable for me. Because legacy-wise, if you've seen any Alien films, the moment you find out, which there again, I'm not spoiling anything, you find out pretty early that he's a synthetic, you're like, okay, because we've had synthetics in most of the films that I recall.
I think pretty much all of them.
I can't remember. Like I said, I've only seen Resurrection once. I don't remember what the role
in Resurrection wasn't Ripley. No, she wasn't an android. She was a
clone. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's right.
So, but there are other things about that film that I could be wrong. But in general, it has a lot of weight,
Yeah.
a synthetic, and that kind of like that whole plot thread. So I found that, and what they were able to do with that, I thought his character was the most interesting, and I thought that thread of how that was used was the most interesting thing about the film. So I really, 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 really liked that. Now, I've alluded to Kaylee Spaney. We saw her earlier this year in Civil War. I liked that film, I think, more than most, and I liked her in that film. And I really liked her in Romulus too. She's not given, I'll just, yes, she is basically Ripley Part 2.
Yeah.
But that's fine because I enjoy seeing, instead of a male-dominated film, I enjoy seeing a strong female lead who's like not just help me, not just playing the damsel in distress. I enjoy all that. So
Well, I mean, and it's more than even just a strong female lead. I mean, it's a nuanced performance in that you bring up the similarities to Sigourney Weaver, and look,
Sure.
It's all intentional. They're very much a mirror.
Totally.
But what I always liked about Sigourney Weaver's portrayal of Ripley in the first movie is she's part of a team. You see her dynamics within a team. Then when it starts to get down to just kind of her, you see both her fear and her emotions, but also countering that with strength and intellect, trying to figure out what to do.
Right.
And again, we got that with Callie Spaney here as well.
Sure.
I think it echoed much of the same beats, for better or for worse, but her performance was great. So
yeah. I agree. And I also, for me, gratifying, like I said, David Johnson, I'd only seen him in Rye Lane, which I recommended on the show. It was a 2023 film. It's a romantic comedy type thing. Completely different type of role. So This is my second film with him. I'm like, whoa, this dude's range is kind of mind-blowing to me. Kaylee Spaney, familiar with her, like I mentioned, Civil War. I'd seen her in Priscilla, where she's playing, Priscilla Presley. But then to see her in this, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, she's good.
Got a interesting, cool range, doing way different types of projects and stuff. So yeah, I'm excited about that. So let's move in. Let's shift into.
You rattle off a lot of positives. So I will see where we're going with this, Chris.
So you're thinking like, why, okay, so let's get into the director, Fede Alvarez, and he's one of 3 co-writers on the film. I had seen a previous work of his, Don't Breathe, which was kind of like a reverse home invasion, like thriller, horror type film, like suspense, I guess you would say. But I thought it was well done. Can't remember if I recommended that one on the show or not, but I thought it was well done. Deep breath. So I enjoyed, on one hand, the link to the other films that were in this cinematic universe, in the Alien universe. I don't think they referenced any of the Predator things, to my knowledge, but maybe they did. I'm not going to spoil anything because one of the questions you alluded to, like, okay, with everything that's gone on, how are these people going to get a hold of the aliens? What's the excuse? What's like eye rolling around? Okay. In the opening minutes, they show remnants of the Nostromo, which was the spaceship that was in the very first Alien movie back in 1979. And you're like, okay. And you see some things being recovered and you're like, not really sure what's going on there, but you're like, okay. And the way that they tried to tie that in, I thought it was interesting. And then the ways in which they referenced with the second film, Aliens, James Cameron's film, there was a colony in there that had been invaded. So you alluded to, like, where were these people, Rain and Andy, to begin with? They not on the same colony planet, but they are on a colony planet that has mining, and they're being technically indentured servants. I don't know if you could say slave or not, but they're in a very miserable situation. Yeah. They want to get off by getting these cryopods, which cryopods, again, something that has a very storied history in this franchise. It's like every film, they malfunction or they do this, or they do that, So again, kind of linking them to the other films. I joked in my intro too about the Weyland-Yutani stockholder thing, that corporation, which they have played a role, well, except for the first film. Well, no, I guess in the first film they were mentioned there as well, but their kind of legacy has only grown as these films have gone on. I appreciated that as well. And then ultimately, you talked about Alien Resurrection, Ripley being a clone. There's a lot of lab work in that. There's some lab work in this that kind of tips hand at that. And one of my favorite films, I'll probably be thrown out by saying it, but Prometheus, there is a shaky, tenuous, but I guess kind of maybe satisfying in some way. If they're going to reference all the other ones, and they do kind of reference Prometheus. I could have done without it, but I was like, well, okay. So all that to say, like, here's the thing. With any film like this, we just discussed Wolverine and Deadpool as far as giving fan service, or what's the, paying tribute, giving fan service, making references. I think that it all depends on how big a fan you are of the franchise and how it's done to whether or not you can tolerate it. And this is the 7th film. So I'm giving a lot of excuses. And I think overall, I did like the film, but there's the but coming. The thing that bothered me, and this was kind of towards the end when they really leaned into it. It's like, okay, I can just kind of smile and nod my head. Yes, I got that reference. Yes, I got that reference. But the thing that was the bottom, the two things that were the bottom of the barrel was recycling dialogue.
Yes.
That is,
yes,
to me, okay. And do it once. And that can be kind of a clever thing if you're like, oh, okay. But no, it was at least twice, but maybe more than that. Maybe
there was only once that really
both
caused me.
And I won't say what lines they are,
but
both of those,
so
I know there were at least 2 instances, and I was just like, okay, that's not cool, because there's no need to do it.
There's no need for
and
it.
And at the runtime in the film, we're talking this is the last third, probably.
Well, it breaks the film at that point. I mean, to me, because it's like you've already had all the references to all the film. This film is one gigantic reference to the entire Alien franchise. I think almost every Alien movie is somehow referenced or themes, and that's cool. I like that. I thought that was great. I don't mind that. I like it when you can pull in some elements and bring in the lore, bring in the what people know about it. But there's absolutely no reason for the lines of dialogue to be recycled just to get a rise out of the audience and just a wink, wink. It's lazy, and it broke for me the one character I'm thinking of specifically that said the most obvious one. A character you mentioned at the beginning, how much you like.
Yeah,
it's like, oh my gosh, that just does. That actually kind of destroyed a little bit of that whole setup and character for me. So, yeah.
So for me, there were 2 lines that did that, but it was bad. And I think the paying tribute and the fan service, to me, up until that point, well, with the exception of one thing I'll get to still, which is my biggest no.
Okay,
but it had been done, I felt, kind of artfully and cleverly.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, just repeating the dialogue, it was just eye rolling. And if they could have left that out, I would have been like, okay, yeah, it's referential, but it was done an artful way. I can accept it. But that was just so lowbrow.
Well, and it made no sense.
And
there's no reason why that individual would have said that line in a way he did, given what we know about that character up to that point. So everything else was referential. You're re-examining the world of these other movies.
Right.
Like when you walk into a room and you're like, oh, wow, I remembered this. This was the setup from here.
Right.
Like, that's cool. That is a good way to handle a callback. That is the way to do it, is reintroduce people to the worlds or the environments they remember, but you don't have to hit them over the head and be like, oh, look, do you remember? This is the same lab we had in this movie.
So,
right.
Yeah. So, okay. All that to say, like I say, I still like this movie, but the other thing, this is what I wanted to actually revisit the film, what I'm about to talk about now, and I'm not going to avoid spoilers because for me it was a big oh. So I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but I will say we have talked about this. I think Rogue One was the first instance where this was done, where they used an actor who had passed away, and they used his face on top of somebody else's face to bring back to have a character, and people be like, oh, and people, and it was just really distracting. And I think after that, Princess Leia was then used in some other film. Maybe she was used in the same one. Maybe it was both her and somebody else. Anyways, it's been done, so it's not like I haven't seen this done before. But I think in both instances, I'd heard some rumbles that this was going to happen. So I understand the plot point, I guess, of having this CGI recreation be there. But I just think, kind of like the dialogue or whatever, it's just not cool. I think they needed to find another way. They had something which is not beholden to an actor, which is the whole idea of this system on board all these various ships that it's probably run by Weyland-Yutani, the corporation. This mother instance, kind of in a way referential to kind of like HAL from 2001. So I think they could have easily let mother do some dirty work or some text. Like it could have been done in a more artful way to kind of communicate like, okay, something's about to go wrong. But instead, and even the way it was shot, I kind of had a sinking feeling in my stomach because they were keeping the face of this person. I was like, okay. Well, I mean, and then it was there and I'm like, ugh.
As soon as I saw this body, I'm like, oh, I know what they're doing. I know exactly. And that's how they're tying this all in. Now, here's the thing, Chris.
But I think why it was there, it's not like we're just going to throw him in here just for fan. No, it wasn't just fan service. There was a need to have a shift and a change. And I get all that.
I think I was okay with that concept.
Okay.
For the first few minutes.
And then if they would have left it at that, but the fact that continues.
Because there is something that they got from that character.
Yes.
That was going to have an effect on another character. I'm like, that's all I needed.
Right.
That's it. Like, so you stop it right there.
Yeah.
I think when this character is then later showing up on TV screens and being all like menacing villain, I'm like, all right, you've lost me at that point.
Agreed.
It's
lazy.
It's lazy, and it's just
and I think it's
ridiculous use of a character that didn't need to be there.
There again, I think if it wasn't a CGI representation of this person, and if it was actually the person because they were still alive, I would have been a little bit better with it because at least I think they get a little bit of fun of reprising a role or something. But when it's just that, I don't know. I feel kind of ick about it. So
it was a little jarring, and I felt like it overstayed its welcome, and just kind of diluted a lot of the film after that for me. So it sounds like, Chris, I'm trying to get you to a fulcrum point here.
Sure.
You enjoyed the film, but you had some major misgivings.
I did. And if I had kind of thrown Alien Covenant under the bus and kind of talking about things, I liked it. I like it right off the bat better than I liked that film, Alien Covenant. So in a way, I feel like Prometheus, because it's the newest film, I've only seen it maybe 300 times as opposed to the thousands of times that I've seen Alien. I think that's like my favorite just because I like how it plays with the mythology. So, and that's why I was disappointed in Alien Covenant because I had expectations that didn't live up.
They backed away from that.
So I feel like this film is closer to what I want an Alien film to do. It still plays with a little bit of history and a little bit of, does have the fan service of the winking, but it doesn't, to some extent, it's still ingeniously done. You feel like you're learning a little bit more. But the two things that I've mentioned, the dialogue and then the return of the CGI character, that bothered me. But so it kept me from being just like over the moon, totally excited.
Okay. All right.
If you are a fan of the Alien world and the franchise, then you should go to see this. You should definitely see it in the big theater because all the, the sound and everything is very immersive. I got to see it in a Dolby theater, so that was awesome. So I feel like it's a worthy entry, but I wonder if they're now going to go this route and Ridley Scott's like, no, I'm just going to make, Gladiator sequels from here on out until I, stop making films. I hope that if they were to go forward with the franchise from here, that they could somehow kind of say like, okay, we've kind of restarted it yet again, but we're not going to keep relying so much on, I hope they don't make the next movie all dialogue from a former film. So,
right. Yeah.
So where are you? What's your ultimate, like, if I guess I'm debating between a 3 and a 3.5 star, maybe if you go from 1 to 5. So where are you?
I'm kind of at the same star rating.
Okay.
Probably at 3.
Okay.
I I had a fine time with this. I think it's okay. I listed out everything I really liked about the film, but also the things I didn't like.
Sure. It sounds like for the most part, the things you didn't like, you and I are lockstep.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the use of the one character, the CGI deepfake character.
Right.
Yeah, that was, I thought, overused and not as effective as it could have been if it just was kept short, brief, and all that. And yeah, the callback dialogue stuff was eye rolling. I honestly grunted and just made a guttural noise, I think, when that happened in the theater. I'm not sure if people next to me knew what I was talking about. But, I liked it. It was having me at the beginning because, I mean, the production design, the look and the feel of the film was just great. And it really echoed back to that first Alien film. And I mean, I knew that's where they were leaning heavy into, we want that same look and feel. But what made the original Alien so special was not, it didn't have any bombast. It wasn't all about the noises and the jump scares.
It's just about the dread.
It's about the dread. And when this film wanted to play with dread, it was pretty good, but it lost interest in dread pretty early on. It's just like, no, we just want loud jump scare quick action stuff. And that just kind of watered down the film for me to where it just became very pedestrian, very much a standard nowadays action movie with CGI creatures that you're fighting. So it kind of lost me toward as it got closer to the end. There's the setups themselves were really interesting. Like the setups for scenes. It's just one, and I found myself getting excited. Like, ooh, this looks cool. Oh, this looks like it could be fun. And then it's like, it was kind of what I expected. It was kind of just kind of there. And I think it tried to compensate so much with noise more than it did substance in a lot of those action scenes or a lot of those thrilling moments. So it was a little bit of a mixed bag for me. I did ultimately enjoy it. I just was a little let down that I felt like they just went too safe and too by the numbers too many times. And again, where I actually did watch the original Alien the morning before I saw this.
Okay, I've watched it recently.
Or
Within
like the day
past,
before.
Month, I've watched the original Alien.
And just reminding me how much they played with the fact that, I mean, you don't see a lot for a long time or very much at all. And yet it still built up this huge, enormous sense of dread. And this movie just didn't really seem too interested in that at all. It's like, there are a couple scenes where it was almost like they ripped off the original one almost identically, like certain things in the background, certain things happen. But it's like, but once that scene happened, it's like, oh yeah, we did that shot, check that box. Now let's just go bonkers and nuts and big action. There is a third and a half act to this film that I had heard somebody tell me got a little off the rails.
Was this the Prometheus reference?
Yes.
Okay.
And I was okay with it.
Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, yeah, it was a little gonzo, but I liked it. It was not expected.
I think maybe length of that too. If it had been like,
right. It was kept relatively short. I mean, as you know, we're at the hour 40-minute mark of the film and I'm like, okay, I know we're getting close to the end, but I know there's something else going to happen. And I think there was it's a pretty easy call up when you see one character taking a certain device and deciding that she's going to use it. And it's like, okay, well, obviously this is going to lead to something bad. And, that was interesting, but I thought overall I'm good with the movie. I did have the same problems you did with those two elements of it. I wish the film had been a little bit more its own than relying so much on just trying to mimic. So it tried to make a perfect blend of Alien and Aliens. It's like, okay, no, that's what we want to do.
Which are the two, I think, probably the two most successful.
Absolutely.
Of the films.
They're the two biggest, best regarded movies. It's a noble effort, but it's like, it just seemed like, okay, now we're going to show you the gun you're going to use. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the same gun that we use in Aliens.
And let me show you how to work it just like a character showed Ripley. We're going to have somebody show Rand.
It's just, I wish the movie could have stood on its own. I think it had chances to do that. It chose not to.
Agreed.
I think Alvarez, he's a good director. He obviously is better at the horror side of things.
Sure.
And when this movie did lean into those horror trappings, which it did, it's probably the more quote horror influenced version of the franchise. I mean, I know, of course, the original Alien was a quote science fiction horror movie.
Right.
This one leans into it's horror, like horror in there are jump scares, there are, violence, there is,
Whereas like Aliens is just an action movie. Like,
Aliens is all action. Alien is sci-fi horror.
Sure.
This one, I don't even feel like really went as deep into the sci-fi. It just kind of echoed everything else. It's like, no, we're going to make a more horror-based version of this film.
Right.
So, all right. All that to say, I had a good time with it. I thought it was fine. I wish it wasn't as loud and bombastic and over the top as it felt like it had to be in a lot of the bigger scenes and sequences, but I did like the characters quite a bit. You already mentioned Callie Spaney. I really liked her. I liked David Johnson as well. I mean, really all the cast was good. I thought, they did the roles. I mean, you knew who was going to be, you knew who was expendable pretty early on and you knew who wasn't, but there were a couple surprises they threw at me, which I was honestly surprised by. And, so yeah, I in looking at it in terms of the other films, I mean, I was not as high on Prometheus as you were. I think that's gone on record. We've talked about that. I admired the film, but you got a higher level of something from it than I did.
Right.
I liked Covenant a little better than you did, just because I did like the fact that it was leaning back into the alien world a bit more that I was comfortable with. So this is kind of still bouncing around in there. I don't feel like it's a drop in overall enjoyment from me from those other previous two films as much, but it's still nowhere near like the original two. I mean, it's just not there. But so be it.
Sure, and and for me, it's somewhere floating. I'll have to do
it's hard to because they're all different directors. They're all different styles. There's a whole like first 4 films and then these last 3 films. Like it's hard to judge them against each other.
And the number one thing, like I go back to Andy, David Johnson's performance after Michael Fassbender doing David in Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I was like, and even though I didn't like Covenant, his still performance in that, I was like, okay, what can they do? And you saw Andy and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. We're going to comment somehow on synthetics or whatever. And you're just like, yeah, whatever. But they still managed to make it interesting. And I think, like I said, that's what pushed this to be a decent entry into the franchise, is the fact what they were able to do with that. So
I've got a pitch for a film.
Okay.
I think they should take all 3 of the androids that we know from the Alien franchise.
They're actually technically 4, but okay.
Who am I missing?
Bishop.
Oh, right, Bishop. Oh yeah, Bishop. Bishop was in Aliens. That's right.
So Ash, Bishop, David,
and now Andy. And that should be a movie. Now, granted, I know Ian Holm is passed away.
Right.
I don't know about the one who plays Bishop. Is he?
I think Lance Henriksen is still alive.
And I mean, obviously, as you saw, I mean, they like to play with de-aging and deep faking and all that. It could be done. But how interesting would that be? Because I do think the androids have been the most fascinating part for me of any of these movies. David was definitely the most interesting part for me of Prometheus and even Covenant. So yeah, I would be into an idea like that. Something about the androids.
I think,
or synthetics.
To try to keep it simple, I think Andy versus David would be amazing. At any point, did you ever kind of either hope or think that it this film has gone all in on call out and references? Did you ever want to see David just somehow appear, show up? I thought, and actually I thought, which I guess whether or not Fassbender said no, or whether I was kind of surprised. I actually thought we would get something somehow of Sigourney Weaver as well. And not that I could tell there was any of that, but I'm kind of surprised that.
They didn't go that heavy with the call, which was good. David, I was kind of expecting, just because the android world did have a little more prominence in this film than I was expecting it to. I did not know the synthetics were going to play quite the role they did here.
Right.
And so I kept thinking, okay, this would be a perfect time for a David appearance, but yeah.
Right.
I guess I got to respect film not going that deep into as many cameos and
Sure.
all that. It was still pretty gratuitous what it did, but
True.
okay. Well, that is Alien Romulus. Sounds like we're both positive on it with some major misgivings and some missed opportunities or things that were not handled as well as they should have been. I will say, just for people always that are listening that haven't seen the movie and are curious about it, it is, I'd say, from a violent standpoint, do you feel like it's a little, probably one of the most violent entries? I feel like it is.
Yeah, and body horror and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and that's where that horror leaning.
It's definitely
really
a hard
leaning in.
R for sure.
There's a couple scenes that are very tough to watch and very challenging from that end.
I'll say just one final little thing too that I thought was kind of original, I guess, maybe. Not that the other films don't have these guys, but if you reference the face huggers, everybody knows kind of what I'm talking about, little crab things. I thought this gave a little bit more screen time to them that I appreciate. I was like, okay, they kind of get their own little, they get to be more of us. Because usually it's all about, okay, give me the big xenomorph that everybody knows with the two
face
mouths
hugger,
that extend
quickly
out.
go ahead and get on somebody's face so you can make the xenomorph.
Right, but they gave them a little bit more like
there was a whole
urgency.
sequence
Yeah.
that I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I liked, and kind of echoing the Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds a little bit. You know? See, like that. That was a fun scene. So that's the thing. It had some moments where I was like, that was good. There's a bit with zero gravity, I'll say.
Yes.
That I thought, okay,
and that to
that's
me,
pretty cool. That was pretty creative.
Completely, okay, you can say how, like, you're referencing kind of the bird sequence with the facehuggers. You could say that semi-references Ripley walking among all the pods. And okay, but the zero gravity sequence, to my mind, and what was going on with that was unique.
It's a little
to
unique,
this film.
and the whole use of the acid blood and just kind of knowing the dangers of that, which is a little more prominent there. Yeah, it definitely took some interesting ideas and had fun with them and made some interesting set pieces and scenes out of it. But at the end of the day, it still ultimately just relied on, to me, no, we got to make this a action, shoot 'em up, and horror version of Aliens, and we're going to make every call out and reference that we need to make sure people remember we're in an Aliens movie. So, yeah. All right. Okay, Alien Romulus. Doing pretty good, I think, box office wise. So I think that bodes well for future. There is supposedly another one already in the works.
Oh, really?
Alien: Earth. That is what I'm hearing.
And do we know if Alvarez is attached to that?
Well, let me hold on. I'm going to go on mute for a second. I'm going to call out our producers, all of our bank of engineers that are in the other room that are helping produce this show, and let me have them look up, and they can tell me here in a minute if he's the one doing it or not. Because
and here's the thing: if that's the case, if it is Alien: Earth, and that's the title, that makes me wonder if they're going to pick up where Resurrection left off, because that was the whole thing.
Oh,
with
you know what?
Was that they were coming back to Earth. And,
Alien Earth is actually the television series.
Oh, but it is in the
Oh, it's Alien franchise.
Okay.
It serves as a prequel and will be set 3 decades before the events of the 1979 film Alien.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's definitely going to be in the Prometheus world.
Okay.
Or in that timeline.
So not following up on Resurrection, which is interesting. Alien Earth. Huh.
Yeah, and it's written and directed by Noah Hawley, who I'm trying to remember who that is. He's worked on the TV series Fargo and Legion, and anyway, so that is supposed to be a TV show. So I think that's what I'm hearing is the next thing in the kind of the Alien franchise. So we'll see.
Mixed feelings about that, but will I watch it? Probably.
Yeah, probably. All right. So that is Alien Romulus in theaters now. That was our review. Chris, let's take a quick break. We come back, got news, got a trailer, and recommendations all to share with people. So stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Well, welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. We had our discussion and review of the film Alien Romulus in the first half of the show. Chris and I both coming out fairly positive. I mean, fairly good on it.
I mean, fanboy and me just can't help, but
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I have to tell you. So I only like sharing because my son, who's a film student, had gone to see the film. I think the Thursday night also.
Okay.
Like I think the same night you did, but in a different city. And he and I are letterboxed connected together, so I see his star ratings. And I try really hard not to see anybody's ratings before I see the film myself. But sometimes when you go to the letterbox landing page, like homepage, just to go check things out, you can't help but see star ratings for new films. And you're like, oh man, I wish I hadn't seen that. So I saw his rating, and it was a 2.5.
Okay.
My understanding is he was not a big fan of the deep fake character.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, he was kind of offended by that. He said he and his suite mates who had all gone to see the movie together were so bothered by that they had to go home that night and watch the original again just to kind of get it out of their system.
Okay.
So, so there was that. So it was kind of fun to see that. Yeah, so he definitely had a lower negative response than I did. I am finding some people online are having more negative responses than I expected to that film.
Okay.
So I think there's some that are kind of where you and I are 3 stars, maybe 3.5, depending on where you end up. So anyway, Alien Romulus. All right. Let's go on to some news.
Okay.
Chris, I got one news item and then I got a trailer to share of a film I was just made aware of. I'm curious about.
Is this more than just music like the Soderbergh trailer was?
I hope so.
Episode?
I don't know. I
Okay.
haven't seen the trailer.
Okay.
It could
All
be.
right.
I mean, that Soderbergh trailer last week was really, not even a trailer.
No.
It's
It was
like
a teaser trailer, but it was just freaky music and names on a screen.
It was kind of like just a really high-end PowerPoint for a minute.
True.
So anyway. Chris, you brought up a story. I think it was you that brought this up. Maybe it was me. No, it was me.
Okay.
I brought this story up and because you made the joke about the Jane's Addiction song. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Darren Aronofsky
Yes.
shooting a gritty New York City crime thriller called, quote, Caught Stealing.
Okay. And I said I wanted the Jane's Addiction song to be used.
There you go. Austin Butler and Zoe Kravitz are going to be that. So he is filming that this month or next month. So September is being filmed right now. It's being produced by Sony. It's going to be released in 2025.
Okay.
However, I want to talk about another news item with Mr. Aronofsky that I thought sounded really, really interesting. And this is coming from a place I do tend to find some decent news. World of Real is the name of the website.
Okay. Shout
A couple
out to
places.
them.
Yeah, a couple places have mentioned this too. There's another site that's mentioned this. Anyway, let me get to it.
Sure.
There are supposedly talks, if you believe the intel that I'm reading here, there are supposedly talks that Darren Aronofsky is
Going to make Noah 2 with Russell Crowe.
No, but this one might be even more interesting than that.
Okay.
The DC universe.
Whoa. Just right there.
Yep.
Aronofsky having anything to do with a comic book movie.
All right. So James Gunn is obviously now the architect of the DC Comics universe, the movies. Right. His first big movie, the Superman one, supposed to be coming out next year.
Okay.
Supposedly there are other movies lined up that are going to be in this DC universe that James Gunn is now overseeing.
I'm sure.
Aronofsky has supposedly talked with James Gunn about hopping on board a superhero project. And the name of the project is Plastic Man. So Plastic Man. Plastic Man is a DC Comics character.
I just remember from the Saturday morning cartoon. I've never read the comic, but I remember watching it Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah. He can stretch his body in all different ways.
And he wears sunglasses.
He wears sunglasses. He's kind of a comic character, like kind of a funny character. He can stretch his body and turn into different sizes and objects and all that stuff.
Often end up tying in knots.
Yeah, a lot of knots. He's, in the comics, he's been kind of a comic relief character a lot of times with his series and all. But there's a listing on Production Weekly, has Aronofsky listed as director of Plastic Man, which is still in development.
Okay. So no actors tied to it.
No, and it's nobody's come out and officially said that, yes, he's doing this. Okay. But it's interesting.
See, Yeah, because I can't imagine him doing something, a comic book movie, but even so, if he did it, that wouldn't be grounded very like gritty. Like, I mean, we're talking, this is the guy who did The Wrestler and The Whale, so like, yeah, just very bizarre. Like, would he take it and have kind of a more dark take on Plastic Man? Okay. Like, I don't know.
Well, supposedly James Gunn many years ago pitched a Plastic Man movie to Warner Brothers.
Interesting.
With Matthew Lillard in the title role.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
It says that the studio rejected that pitch, but it sounds like Gunn may now be revisiting this whole project and that it wouldn't even need a green light since he's the current boss of the DCU. So anyway, this is all rumors.
Yeah, Matthew Lillard doing Plastic Man.
Oh, yeah.
I could actually see that because he did like Drop Dead Fred. I think he was, I think that's a throwback a little bit. I don't know if
he Drop Dead Fred? Yeah. No,
I think another guy was.
No. Drop Dead Fred was like the Imaginary Friend movie, right?
Right.
That was the guy from like Australia.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah,
one of the, no, he was from England. He was one of the young ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but
Matthew Lillard did Shaggy.
He did Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo movies, but taking the kind of a comic approach or zaniness of Drop Dead Fred, like different actor, but like, I don't know. I could see Matthew Lillard working.
Suppose that was a pitch years ago, didn't happen, but I don't know. I'm very curious if this comes to be. Darren Aronofsky, we drop names sometimes on the show, Chris. We don't always give background to people. They may not be aware who we're talking about. This is Pi was one of his first films that kind of got him on the map. Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, The Wrestler, you mentioned, The Whale.
He did do
Noah, which
and
was
The Fountain.
kind of had a lot of sci-fi elements and a lot of big CGI spectacle elements to it in both of those. So there's some grounds for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought that sounded interesting. We hadn't had a really comic booky news item in a while, so I thought I'd bring that up as a potential. I'm very, very curious about that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I'm sad we don't have a trailer.
Well, I know. Well, we're way far off from anything with that, but
sure.
We'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to a very different type of film and news. And this is actually one that the film is done and will be available soon. I don't have an exact release date on this.
Okay.
August 23rd. That'd be in 3 days, Chris.
Whoa, that's not typically not a good sign.
Well, but this is an Apple TV Plus movie.
Oh, well,
I think.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
We just reviewed
reviewed
Instigators, and that kind of dropped out of
nowhere. No, I'm sorry. It's not an Apple TV.
Okay.
It is a Sony Pictures Classic. My bad.
Okay.
So yeah, that's not a great sign. But this is a small, very, very small independent film, so it may be okay.
Sure.
Jason Schwartzman.
Oh, okay. It's hitting theaters this weekend.
Yes,
is this,
that would be
between the
temples.
Okay, I've just heard the title and I've heard the premise briefly.
Yes,
but comedy, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's Jason Schwartzman, Carol Kane, and Robert Smigel.
Okay.
So yeah, you would think drama, comedy, maybe some drama in it. We're gonna watch the trailer, so we'll see.
Okay.
The tagline for the film is a cantor in a crisis of faith finds his world turned upside down when his grade school music teacher re-enters his life as his new adult bar mitzvah student. So right away, kind of interesting premise.
Sure.
It's directed by Nathan Silver. Not familiar with anything else he's done. I tried looking him up. He's done a lot of smaller independent films. His films are Thirst Street, The Great Pretender, and the television series Cutting My Mother, which I'm not familiar with any of those.
No, me neither.
So this is a film he has directed, and I'm my mistake. The trailer's on Apple TV, but no, it's not an Apple TV film. It'll be Sony Pictures Classic going to theaters.
Okay.
What do you say we watch the trailer for?
Yeah, let's do it.
Between the Temples. Here we go.
Let us start with the Kabbalat Shabbat service, led by our very own Cantor Ben.
Yadid. Nah. You should probably fire me. I would fire me.
We're not going to do that then.
Because my moms are both big donors to the temple.
That is not a small consideration.
What are you looking at? Nothing. Calling me nothing?
Are you okay?
Mrs.
All right. So that is the trailer for. I already forgot the name.
Between the Temples.
Between the Temples. Yeah. Well, Chris, thoughts? Interesting.
It looks like the type of small film that Schwartzman would be involved with. What was that film, Listen Up, Philip? And I can't remember the director that was in that, but it was a independent film that kind of had this, guy who was not likable, and Schwartzman played him, and he was kind of a failed kind of writer, or whatever. Very similar type film to me. But I am interested in seeing Carol Kane because haven't like her as an actress. So there's promise there. I guess the one thing that worries, two things. A, it's coming out this weekend, and this is the first I've heard of it, other than being briefly aware there was a movie, but I didn't know what it was. And two, I'm afraid the trailer may have shown too much.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get you interested because it's their last chance to get you in the theater. But I'm interested. I'd like to give it a shot, because especially if it's the type of small film that otherwise is going to go unnoticed because it's kind of being dumped here at the end of the summer. Yeah. Who knows? But Between the Temples.
Between the Temples.
Okay.
And what I'm curious about right now, I'm doing a little experiment here while we're sitting here, Chris.
Okay.
Because I'm curious if it's being released this weekend.
Yes.
And we are here at the end of the summer, so I mean, it's like there are still summer movies in the theater, but I think Alien Romulus was probably like the last big movie
before we get to like prestige season.
Right.
Right.
So my question is, if I look at the showtimes for our theater this Friday, will that film show up?
I think it
anywhere
will.
in our area?
I think
the answer is, I'm scrolling, I'm looking, and it will.
Okay.
Between the Temples is playing in Hickory, North Carolina.
A little tease. We may be reviewing this next week.
Yeah, because really looking at films coming up, Chris, we just got to go ahead and do this while
on air
we're doing a
production
little production meeting here. We did not review It Ends With Us, which is kind of the bigger hit movie right now too.
I'd like to take a pass on that.
Okay. We also took a pass on Borderlands. I was fine with passing on that one.
Also like to take a pass on that.
We never saw Despicable Me 4. Did you?
I did not.
Did you go out and see Despicable Me 4 and not tell me?
I did not.
Okay.
I did see Inside Out 2, but I did not see Despicable Me.
Alien Romulus, we've already talked about. Deadpool Wolverine, we have talked about. Twisters, we have talked about. Trap, we have talked about. Inside Out 2, you talked about or saw.
Yep.
And then there are movies I have no idea. I've never heard of them.
There's some horror movies that are kind of being dumped. Stream, I think, is one of them, which...
Yes. Oh, there is one coming out that I'm curious about.
Okay.
Is the Blink Twice, the Zoe Kravitz film.
With, what's his face? Gambit. Yep. That's how I'm going to refer to him from now on.
That is his name now. So what's his face? Gambit guy.
Yes.
What is his name?
I can see his face. He was the surprise in Wolverine, Deadpool.
What is his name?
I don't know. Now that's all I can think of.
Oh, hold on. No, I've got to look it up and see. Channing Tatum.
Oh, thank you.
God.
Yeah.
We are getting so old.
I know. But it's funny just to call him Gambit because that was the role he didn't get.
So Blink Twice is coming out this weekend. I'm curious about that. Strange Darling is also a film I'm very curious about.
I don't know anything about that one.
Okay, Willa Fitzgerald stars in it. It's let's see.
It's about Doctor Strange's
A
daughter.
twisted one-night stand spirals into a serial killer's vicious murder spree.
Whoa.
I've seen the trailer. It looks really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, Giovanni Ribisi is the director of photography for the film. He's a producer on it and also the cinematographer.
I was not aware that skill was in his tool belt.
That is there. Anyway, you ought to check out the trailer. It looks interesting.
So I'm going to call, since we're doing an on-air production meeting, Mr. Alan Jackson is going to make the call of what we're going to review next week.
That's fine. We got a couple choices.
Yep.
We have Blink Twice, Strange Darling,
or
Between the Temples. That seems to be the three. All three are playing at our local multiplex this weekend.
I'm going to make Alan Jackson make the call.
One I will not be opting for us to do because it just does not look good. Okay. Is the new Crow.
That is a new release, but it
doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I have to hear other people I trust come back and tell me it's actually good for me to consider.
Right.
At this point, everything I've seen and heard and felt about it doesn't feel good.
Agreed.
So those are all the new releases coming out this weekend. Of the three, Blink Twice, Strange Darling, and Between the Temples. One of those three will be the ones we discuss next week.
Excellent.
Okay, Chris. Meeting done. Meeting adjourned.
Sure.
Let's go right into the last thing we've got today, which is your recommendation. Chris watches movies.
I do.
I mean, we all watch movies, but Chris gets to watch movies and normally has very good taste in picking movies to watch. And then I'd say you bet a pretty high average on the ones you pick to watch you like or you would be willing to recommend. You have good discerning taste. So you have seen a film recently that you'd like to share with us and recommend. So what would that be?
So I'm going to, usually I try to also vary up the services that I recommend because I don't want to seem like we are not in the pocket of any corporate streaming service like Hulu or Netflix. You know, if anyone wants to sponsor the show, come on. but we're not. Last episode, I did recommend something that was streaming on Netflix. Film today that I'm going to recommend, Daughters. It's a 2024 release. It just recently released on Netflix. So it's 2 in a row that I'm doing on Netflix. But, hey, can't help it. I saw it just recently and I liked it. I'll read you a little bit of a description of what it's about. It's a documentary. 4 young girls prepare for a special daddy-daughter dance with their incarcerated fathers as part of a unique fatherhood program in a Washington, D.C. jail. Reminded me a little bit of the black and white film from 2 or 3 years ago, Time, which was a documentary that was also good. I think it may have been actually nominated for an Oscar, maybe. But this one is directed by 2, from what I can tell, first-time directors, Angela Patton and Natalie Ray. It got some awards at Sundance, and then I think that's where Netflix snatched it up from, and they've now released it. And I think it's only been out for a week or so. I really, really enjoyed it. Although you can say, it's kind of familiar incarcerated father, and you kind of see from the description or hear from the description, it kind of obviously sets up this tension of, okay, these fathers who have been incarcerated are going to get to see their daughters. Got it. Kind of know, yes, there were some Kleenexes involved, tears involved, but the patience with which they set things up. And it's not like the final moments of the film are that dance and maybe the immediate aftermath, 5 minutes and then cut to it. Nope. You get more than that. Some, effects afterwards. And it's just really, I think if I remember correctly, reading somewhere, it took 8 years to make this.
Wow.
And I guess it didn't take that. They took that time. So there's a lot of time invested in the telling of this film. And I feel like it shows. Also, it does, I will say maybe it drops off a little bit when we get to the dance, maybe as far as cinematography. But the early going, let's say the first 20, 30 minutes of this film, it's got some really great moving imagery, cinematography, just beautiful. Sometimes it's nature, just different things that are just very, very cool and very well done that you would expect to see more in a narrative film than you would a documentary. So a lot of talent going on there. I recommend Daughters. It's like I said, it's 2024 release. It's on Netflix. So check it out.
All right. That is Daughters on Netflix.
Yes.
Chris's recommendation of a film to check out. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. That will do it for today. So our review of Alien Romulus, our discussion of Between the Temples, upcoming film, discussion of Aronofsky doing Plastic Man. Who knows?
Man.
That may be one we have to retract later. I'm feeling more and more that maybe some fanboy has just come up with that idea and threw it out there and tried to get buzz out of it.
Well, you know what? It's fun just to think about.
It is.
Whether or not it comes to fruition, that's fun to think about.
And then Chris's recommendation. So lots to cover today, lots that have been done. Chris, if anybody has any feedback for us, wants to challenge us on anything we said, maybe they want to defend the use of a certain character in Alien Romulus to the extent that he was used, sure, bring it on. How can they do that?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can also try to follow us on Twitter at Footcandle Film, Facebook, Footcandle Film Society, Instagram Threads, Footcandle Film. Yeah, you can mention things to us there, tell us how we're wrong or whatever. Sure, do that. We'd like to interact with our listeners. Also, we're on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing, leave quick takes sometimes. Alan mentioned his son, Nick J, is also on Letterboxd. If you want to give him a follow, do us a favor. Give us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on. It will help us reach new listeners. We'd appreciate it. And I believe we have almost made it all the way through this episode without mentioning the 2024 Foot Candle Film Festival, which is September 20th through the 29th. It's going to be here in Western North Carolina. We've already got the lineup online at footcandlefilmfestival.com. You can go look at the films we're going to show, get tickets. It's going to be our 10th year. It's going to be a great one. We'd love to have you come join us.
All right. Well, that will wrap us up for today. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. I guess listening. We don't do anything visual, so you don't want to see Chris and I. So, no, just hearing's fine. But thanks so much for listening, and we will look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.